Hello and welcome to the podcast, The Way of the Sensitive. I'm your host, Cara Wilde. This is a podcast for those of us who feel called to live in a different way, to create a new society where diversity and uniqueness is celebrated, not shamed. We're the channels of the light, co-creating a heaven on earth upon this beautiful planet. We're here to live and achieve our soul's goals in this lifetime. To us, it's not woo, it's real. Calling all the magic makers, the mystics, the empaths, the sensitives, the starseeds, the artistic, autistic ones, sometimes sidelined, sometimes scapegoated, but we know that we're here to create new pathways in the one mind, because it's not just about traversing alternative dimensions, it's also about landing and being fully alive in this gorgeous world. Hello and welcome to episode 22, and we're back. So I've had a bit of a break. That felt good, but it's really good to get back into podcasting and communicating with you in this way. I have had a blast on today's interview, but before we get into that, just one quick announcement. I am stopping offering single sessions with the ancients. So the one-off channeled sessions are going to end on the 2nd of February. So what that means for you is if you have been wanting a chat, a consultation with the ancients, and you only want to work with them in an hour's session, you have until the 2nd of February to book that. I'm okay if you take the session after the 2nd of February. You've got the whole of February to use that session, but it needs to be booked by the 2nd. After that, they're no longer available. So if you've been wondering about it, no pressure. If it's not for you this time, you'll get whatever information it is that you need when you need it, in the way that you need it. Source always works in your favor. But I wanted to let you know, if it is something that you've been thinking about for a while and you've been, I must get round to that, it's going to be off the table after the 2nd of February. So hop over to carawilde.com and you can easily book a session online there, and I would dearly love to channel for you. So today's episode. Today was a giggle. I'm talking to Dylan Spradlin, and Dylan is a parenting and life coach, and she helps families who are struggling with overwhelm and tension. Everybody. And okay, so today's episode was such a giggle. I got to speak to Dylan Spradlin, who is a parenting and life coach who helps families who are struggling with overwhelm and tension and helps them find playful and sacred interactions together. And there's so many golden nuggets from this interview about the power of play. You know what I'm like about being playful and how incredibly important it is. And the ancients constantly remind us not to take life so seriously, which is just so hard at times, so incredibly hard at times, but there is power in that. And whether you are a parent, whether you are an auntie or uncle or grandparent, or you have any connection with children or teens, because we talked about play and how it changes throughout the ages, I would encourage you to listen to this. And I would also invite you to think about your relationship with play, with your parts of yourself. Let me say that a bit clearer. So we talked about why we as grown-ups can find play so difficult, what gets in the way, what's helpful, how play can help build communication and trust, how to have boundaries around play. Dylan just made it so easy for me to think of how to bring different ways of playing into my family's experience on a daily basis in easy to fit in segments, just really freeing. But I also took away how playful I am with other parts of myself. How much do I play? How much do I allow myself to enter playful dialogue with those other aspects of self? And so, just I'm not asking you to go deep into therapy on this, but just hold that. I invite you to hold that awareness lightly. And I mean, Dylan is such an embodiment of play. I ended up saying everybody needs a Dylan in the house, because if you're an empath, just sit there and absorb it. You'll get the play. You will really get the play. So I hope you enjoy it. I'm sure you will. And leave any comments on the blog. Email me at cara@carawild.com. And if you have any topics that you would like to see discussed, or any people that you would like to see interviewed on The Way of the Sensitive, please do let me know. I've got a collection of guests ready, and I'm always open to new ideas and looking for new and exciting people to interview. All right, speak to you soon. Bye. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the podcast, The Way of the Sensitive. And this is episode 23. And on today's episode, I have got Dylan Spradlin. I've said that right, yeah?
Yep.
And thank you. I don't know if you know this actually, but I have not done the podcast for probably just under a year. So thank you for being the first guest on the kind of semi-relaunch of the podcast. And Dylan and I know each other from a online business group, a lovely business group. And we've kind of connected over there around the topic that I wanted to talk about today.
All right, my cat started chasing my dog just now.
So I know
that's hello, we're recording. Don't chase the cat.
The audience have no idea you're batting your pillows.
It's like, wait, I have to stop this from happening.
And just the people listening as well. I had this experience in I live in obviously Cornwall, UK, and whereabouts in the States are you again, roughly?
I'm in the state of Washington, so smack in the middle of the state. Okay. Not Seattle, which a lot of people think Seattle is all of Washington, but there's a whole other part of the state that's not anything like Seattle.
So nowhere near me. So I should not have been
nowhere near you.
On I think it was between Christmas and New Year when I was walking on the beach. I had to stop myself from running up into this woman on the beach going, Dylan! Because I swear you've got a doppelganger. So I have no idea what this podcast might be like, because I think we've already got a connection somewhere.
Well, it's interesting because I have ancestry from Cornwall. My maiden name is Trefethen, which is a Cornish name.
I remember you saying now.
Yeah, and so I went and visited Cornwall a couple of times in my life, and when I go there, I look through the phone book, and I have, this name that in this country is so rare, nobody can deal with it, but over there, it's like really common, and so maybe I've got DNA running around everywhere. Who knows?
That's so cool. And well, just to add to it was around St. Michael's Mount, which is where all the ley lines come together. So it's St. Michael's and St. Mary's come. So God knows what parallel reality I might have seen you in there.
Maybe.
So I wanted to get you to come and talk about the topic of play today. So I always talk about the power of play personally. I'm always trying to bring more play into everything that I do and with my kids, and it's surprisingly, shockingly not easy. And so, but to start off with, can you just kind of tell us briefly, I know that's not all, you do a lot of things looking at, well, I've just read your website. So can you just let people know what it is you do and how you came to do what you do?
Yeah, I'll try to be brief just to get the streamline to where I am right now. But so I've spent my whole life working with kids, starting off babysitting and then growing into preschool teaching. I was certified as a birth doula in my early 20s.
Wow.
And then I went to school and got my master's degree in clinical psychology and became a counselor and therapist and did play therapy for several years and trauma therapy. And then eventually moved out of the mental health field. I felt too boxed in, and I really like what you do, because when I read your website, I was like, oh yeah, because the mental health field and the way the state regulations and pathologizing everybody, having to put everybody into the boxes. And I just didn't like working that way. And I think it's very useful for many people. And I just didn't like working that way. So I moved out of the mental health field and into coaching. And I like working with parents and families so that I can help them thrive, help them be more of who they are as a family, and be in alignment with one another. Most of the time, the clients who come to me, they're they're just feeling off with each other, like their energy is off with each other, or their kids are just not feeling good, or they're arguing and they're bickering, or their parents are too stressed and they're arguing and they're bickering, or just, I mean, one of the quotes from one of the parents I worked with said, well, we had everything in place to be a happy family, but nothing was working. There was always this underlying tension.
Wow.
So I just came in and figured out what that was and helped them set it right.
Okay.
And play is a huge part of that. And I'm very good at playing. I'm very good at playing all sorts of ways. And it never really occurred to me that it's not so easy for some people.
Mm,
And yeah, so recently, especially the Mary Poppins Returns movie just came out.
yeah.
Um, and I'm just like, oh my God, I'm like Mary Poppins. I just come in there and I just like make everything magical and play and everybody lightens up. And I'm not quite the, strict school mom so much, but and I also love Pippi Longstocking, and so I kind of channel her. I make more messes like Pippi than Mary Poppins does.
I can see, yeah. I bet kids love you. Do kids love
Yeah,
you?
kids love me.
Mm.
And maybe I don't clean up so much after myself to work on that part.
So the play part, so is the play part just like it? That sounds like a really small part of what you do, a fundamental piece, but it's just a small part.
Fundamental piece, yeah. And
Yeah.
one of the pieces that came along with me as I grew into who I am is the self-directed learning. And one of the things about 20 years ago that I got really interested in is the Sudbury Valley School model, which is also based on the Summerhill model in the UK, which is schools that don't have a curriculum and they don't have teachers. They have staff that are there to
Right.
support students, but really the school is modeled with the ability that students are in charge of their own education, their own learning. They get to decide what they want to learn, when they want to learn it, how they want to learn it, and they're in charge of figuring out how to make that happen. So they can ask for somebody to teach them. They can put classes together if they want a class. They can just figure it out themselves, and they can spend as much time or as little time on it as they want.
Mm-hmm.
And using play as especially when they're younger, as the way to learn. And I started studying this 20 years ago and seeing that how kids learn from birth to 5 when we put them in school is through play.
Yeah.
And if we don't put them in school and start telling them, okay, now you need to learn this and you need to learn it by this date in order to advance to the next class, they would continue to learn if we didn't interrupt it with school. And that whole history of how we started schooling, the way we think of it, started rather arbitrarily with the Industrial Revolution. And so learning the history of schooling and why we do it and how we've kind of adopted this. And now that we have this society where parents need a place to put their children during the day because we have to have a dual income.
Yeah.
And so parents can't not put their kids in school, and we've kind of bought into this need that we have to teach our children, we have to educate them, when really I don't believe that we do. I think children are capable of educating themselves, and they will learn the tools of their society in order to be productive members of it. What are you doing, little dog?
And that takes like a lot more faith, doesn't it? So
yes.
I don't know if you know that I home educate, and we kind of like unschool, like that's how we're doing it, unschooling. So it's very much similar to what you say, but we haven't, there's not a lot of support structurally or, so we're just kind of going through it as much as, like, just making our way as much as we can. It takes so much faith in the process. Somebody, it is like, I'll pay for your therapy. I'll just pay for your therapy. That's like, when you get older, that's what I'll do. If I mess up, I'll pay for your therapy. But it's kind of like, I remember reading John Holt, one of the guys around.
Oh my God, I love him.
Yeah, and he I think it was him or it was somebody around the unschooling community anyway, and it's like you don't open the oven to look at a cake before it's done, or else it just collapses. And it's like that's what we do by measuring and having set dates of when you need, like you say, when you need to achieve certain exams. But it can be really difficult to pull yourself out of, we call it deschooling. I find that still after all these years really difficult to kind of pull ourselves out of.
Right. What I encourage parents to do is just immerse yourself as much as possible in communities, online communities, books, information that supports this idea
Yeah.
of trusting children.
Yeah.
Because as long as you get scared, that fear is going to come up. And I
Mm.
didn't do this with my own daughter, even though I had found it when she was a baby. um, I was married at the time, and she was an infant, and one of these schools was being developed in Seattle where we lived at the time, and I even went to a couple of the meetings. But by the time she was 4 and old enough to go to it, I had gotten divorced, and I needed to go to work, and I didn't have the money for tuition, and
Yeah.
I didn't know if I was going to stay living in the area, and I didn't want to start her there and then move her to a place where they didn't have that option.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
go to this school for 4 years, and then now you have to go to a regular school.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't know what to do. And so it was that same thing. Like, I didn't know what to do, so I didn't do it. I started her in an alternative public school program,
Yeah.
and it felt like it was the best middle ground that I could do.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't work. She hated school, and she struggled with it her whole life, and she ended up dropping out and getting her GED, her
Yeah.
equivalency.
Yeah.
um
And
so
that's it. I started out home educating. I was never going to send them to school, and then I thought, actually, I really want to have a career, and like, because I was missing. I worked in the addictions field as a counselor, and then started this online business, and I was just really missing having the time for a career. So put my kids in school, and it's just did not know. No.
ah,
wasn't going to happen. So yeah, it wasn't something that I just thought from a philosophical point of view, this is how I want to do it. It was more like, this is just not working, and it's not sustainable at all. So
right.
but I think it's an important part that we, in anything that we're doing, like this whole podcast is about people that feel like they're misfits, they don't belong. And my whole ethos is because we're here to create another way, and I think we're just like a bridging generation, and
Mm-hmm.
kind of got to just find, like you say, other communities and people that are kind of thinking your way, and that, like, I mean, we can hook up. I was saying to you just before we'd finished, like just before we started recording, the irony that I just asked my daughter to stop playing because she was making too much noise before we came on here. But she's hooked up with people over Skype that she's playing with, people that she's known all of her life, but they don't live locally. So they're hooking up with people, using the internet so that they can school that way and still have connections with friends that are outside school time as well, So it's just finding different ways of making things work, I think.
Yeah. And luckily we can do that in this age, right? You're
Yeah.
not so isolated.
Yeah.
And it's so important. And some of the people that I work with are people who they can't pull their kids out of school. They have to go to work.
Yeah.
They don't have the money to put them in an alternative program that's better suited. So public school, traditional school is the only alternative. And so I help them figure out how to make the best of that.
Yeah. So
And
how do you see, like, the school kind of structure impacting the family dynamics, and that, I mean, I can have an imagining, but that
right.
that takes away that sense of ease and play and flow that I think you try, and sounds like
Well,
that's what you try and go and do.
yeah. So one of the things I encourage for these sensitive families, the people
Yeah.
who are sensitive within them, it what I encourage is the peer pressure, the pressure for families to enroll kids in sports and activities and lessons and all these things that go along with the school. That's the culture that they go to, is to really protect your family. If you have to have your kids in school, then protect your family from the times that they are not in school. So don't have them enrolled in too many other activities. If they really want to be part of something, then do that. If they really have a draw to do something, then yes, don't deny them. But you don't need to keep up with like everybody's asking you, why isn't your kid enrolled in soccer? Don't feel like that's the reason you need to enroll your kid in soccer.
Yeah.
But let yourself have that downtime in the evening, and don't feel like you're don't take the view that you're depriving your child. Take the view that you're protecting your child.
And giving
So
them time to decompress from all of that.
decompress
Yeah.
and use that time for the play. So, and this is where I use the play and talk to parents about, there's different types of play. You don't always have to play with your child.
Okay.
So playing with your child is important, but it's in small doses, because we, with adult brains, we can't do it all the time. It's hard. It's hard.
I remember you when I was saying I feel so bad saying come off, and you were like, you're allowed to say no. You're allowed to
I'm not to say yes. Sometimes you don't want to.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't want to play Barbies. So you don't have to do it all the time. And what I encourage parents, especially parents who have a hard time playing at all, who are just learning how to play at all, teaching the reasons why it's important helps to learn when to use play with your child and when not to. And the reasons it's important are to allow a doorway into your child's world so they can show you who they are. They get bombarded every day by being told who they need to become. You know, be better, do better, learn better. We want you to learn your manners so that you can do this. We want you to learn these things so you can do this. We want you to grow up so that you can be this. We want you to find out who you are so you can become this. And if we're going to be invited into their play, instead of trying to guide their play or direct their play or do play on our terms, you know, like I could do some play with kids on my terms, you know, like let's draw, let's color. That stuff I could sit and do with them all day long because I love doing that. But if they want to do something that they want to do and I'm going to do it with them, that's harder. That's harder to do. But that's the important time, because that's when they're going to show who they are and come into my world. And then you just get to be there and witness who they're showing you that they are. And if you're able to be there in an accepting way and observe and love them and be eager and learn these ways of being. And so that's part of what I teach, is how to do that, because it's not intuitive. It's not just a normal thing.
So what do you think gets in the way of, like, there's quite a few questions coming up for me, and the first one I guess is, I agree that it's play can be hard, and giving ourselves permission to play, all sorts of elements that I'm kind of thinking about. Why is it so hard for us as grown-ups to know how to play? What's happened to us? Have we just forgotten? Or
Yeah, well, I think first of all our brains are different, but I think that play is, in essence, it's vulnerability. In order to really just let down our adult brain and our adult mind, we have to let go of power and control. And we're doing that in this relationship where we're used to having the power and control.
Yeah.
And if we're going to do that in this relationship with this child, we're letting them have the power and control. And that is vulnerable. And it's intimate. And we're switching that dynamic. And that can be really awkward. And if you're not used to that in this particular relationship, it can really bring up some things. And if you're not looking for that and you're not aware of what that might be or feel like, it's easier to just, maybe I need to go fold the laundry, you know? And it's easier to like, oh wow, oh, I forgot to go do this thing, you know, I'll be right back, and or stare at your phone or whatever, you know, and you're not aware of it. It's just all these other things just come in the way, because the uncomfortable feelings just start to trickle up.
It's like when you're trying to be more visible in your business or do an important blog post in your business or something, the amount of nonsense that becomes urgent. It's the same kind of principle.
Exactly. Yeah. So the nonsense starts getting in the way. So it's helpful to realize that we stop ourselves from being present with our kids as soon as we switch that power dynamic and why we're switching it, and what happens to us, that, oh, we're letting them kind of be in charge. And that doesn't mean that we're letting them be bossy and control the whole thing, because that does happen, but that is a clue that something else is going on, right? That when something is going on in the play that maybe sticks up a little harsher or pointy, that's how I call it, like, because I'm a feely person, then that's an indication that there might be some communication needing to happen. So I look at it as, what is the child trying to tell us through their play?
Right.
So if she is bossing and controlling and not letting any ideas come in, or, you know, like, let's pretend that I'm a cheetah and I'm in the wild and you're the hunter, and then you use a tranquilizing gun and then you shoot me. And you say, well, how about I'm the hunter and I use a tranquilizing gun, but instead of shooting you, I miss. And no, you have to do it this way, you know, like, and she doesn't let any ideas come in.
Yeah.
Then what is she saying? She might be saying, I am tired of having power and control over me every other time in my life. I get bossed around all the time. I need a chance to be in control. Like, and so we look at it like that. And so it might be a little bit easier to take that bossiness and control and let her have a chance to be that way.
So it's like seeing the positive intention of the behavior, you know, what's the positive
Right.
intention that's trying to get out? Yeah.
Right. And so then you sit back and, like, be eager and enthusiastic and let her take charge, because that helps her fill that hole in her own spirit. Like, she's a natural born leader and she doesn't get to lead in her own life because she's 5 years old and everybody else has to tell her what to do.
Yeah.
She's from the start of when she gets up, she has to be told when to get up, when to get dressed, what to eat, when to brush her teeth, time to get in the car, you know, and then at school, what to do. And now she's home and she's playing and she's in charge.
Yeah.
So, okay, I'm backing off.
Yeah.
I do what you tell. So if you can avoid getting irritated because you suddenly don't have a say in the play, it
especially
can still
if
be
you're
really
feeling
fun.
Yeah, but and especially, you know, as a parent, if we're coming back and we've just had a rough day at work and the boss has been telling us what to do, and we're following a strict diet, so we're not even allowed to choose what we want to eat, you know, if any of that sort of stuff is going on, I guess, like, and then there's this 5-year-old that's wanting to be in charge,
telling you what to do. Yeah, I can bring up some stuff.
Wow.
So, and then the other times, you know, I just had a post about this. One of the common things I see is that people who are uncomfortable with playing with their kids is they turn into the entertainer. So the adult will end up being this performer. Like, they'll be so silly and goofy in the play that the kid ends up laughing so hard, and they're obviously having a good time, but it's not a cooperative play. It's the adult being the entertainer, and they're just being silly and goofy and taking over. So they're directing the play.
Right.
And
so would you have a definition of play then, like or a loose definition of, like, how you would define play, what the elements need to be there in order for it to look like play for you, not entertaining or something else?
I should come up with one. Let me see if I can do it.
Yeah, right now.
I would say, I know Peter Gray has a definition of play that has to do with the ability to quit if you want to, and that you can change the rules and cooperate, but I don't remember what his is. I would say that in a nicely balanced, it's co-creating with each other, being able to be vulnerable and both having fun. I mean, being playful and vulnerable. I don't know. Yeah, I can't come up with it. I should come up with one. Playful and vulnerable, co-creating.
And the piece that really landed for me when you said it earlier was like this. So all of that comes together and it feels intimate. Like there is a real, like, intimacy, and that's where the sacredness comes from.
Right. And that's the going into their world that they don't get to show people. And the reason that's important, that parents don't often get, and not just parents, adults don't get. I mean, we think of play as being, you know, play, it's what kids do. But the reason that's important is that's the most important thing for a kid right now, is their world and what's important to them. And if you can go and be a trustable adult in their world, then they're going to know that about you. And then when important things come up for them, they're going to know you're the person they can go to.
Yeah.
And they can show you through play. And as they get older, they'll be able to tell you with words.
Because you've had access to their world and you've honored it.
And you've honored it, and you've seen it, and you haven't tried to change it or fix it or direct it or taught through it. That's the thing. Here's the don'ts. You get in that play, you don't try to teach through it or redirect it or say, well, actually dinosaurs weren't purple. How do you know? I don't know. But you don't do that in the play. You don't try to be brain oriented. You just let it be. And it's so important, because that's where you build the trust. And so you could be in a session of play, and it can be really intimate and fun and free flowing, and it can turn on a dime where the kid suddenly starts throwing a tantrum or starts crying or starts getting mean. Like they can turn and then start, like you can see it in their eyes, and their teeth will clench, and they'll start coming at you with a play sword, and like, whoa, okay, I'm not going to let you hurt me. And then you can go with it as it's play, but it's like, wow, that came out of nowhere. But that's when it's like, okay, I'm telling you, this is what I'm trying to tell you through my play, that I had some stress today, or I had some stress last week, and now you're a safe person. You've become a safe person for me to share that with. And so, I mean, it's basically, this is what I teach parents is the basic elements of play therapy. This is what I would do in play therapy is be able to create this safe place with kids so that they could show me what's going on for them. And I'm not saying that, I'm going to teach parents how to do play therapy, but these are the basic elements of why play is important and why play therapy works. And you can do this in your own family so that you don't need therapy later on, maybe. Because you can do this, and you don't need to do it all day, every day. You can do it 15 minutes twice a week.
That's what I was going to ask you. So I'm imagining some parents like, right, okay, so to be a good parent, so to be a good parent, how much do I have to do every day? Do I need to do this for 10 minutes every day? Where do I fit it on my schedule? And I'm sure that it's the panic that comes up that this sounds so important. And my guess is that if it's done properly, it's like self-care. If you do it deeply, you don't need as much as you think.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and I encourage for the whole like looking at your clock thing and being distracted. And I do this when I play with kids. I have kids in my life that I go and visit and take care of sometimes. I set a timer, and I tell them, I'm going to play with you for 15 minutes, and I'm setting a timer. And after 15 minutes, I'm going to go read my book.
Oh my God, the freedom.
And then if there's a boundary, and I don't have to keep checking the watch, because I know that timer's got my back. And I don't have to, I can dive in deep, and I know I'll be able to get out again. Because you can't do it forever. It's hard. And sometimes the timer goes off, and I'm so into it that I say, okay, the timer went off, but I'm having so much fun, I want to stay for 5 more minutes. So
honesty, just really,
I'm just going to stay and play, and then I'm going to leave in a little bit. But then they're like, okay. And the kids know that there's a boundary, and they don't have a huge problem with me leaving when it's time, because they knew the boundary. And the kids will get used to it. But I would say, depending on your family life, like if they have like a bully situation going on at school, you might want to increase the amount of time so that they can build up that trusting relationship with you and be able to express themselves more, maybe 3 times a week, or maybe every day for 10 minutes after school, and call it special time. We're going to have some special playtime after school every day, just so you can decompress and that we can just relax together before we have snack and homework time, or whatever you do. If things are pretty relaxed around your house, you might just go a couple times a week. When you feel like it. Once you get into the practice of it and you realize you can get out again with that lovely timer, it's not so hard.
No, that's really freeing.
The pressure of like, oh my God,
I would have thought that were enough when they were little.
I'm going to stuck there for an hour and a half, and I'm never going to be able to leave, right? And then the other piece of this whole play thing, this whole independent free range kid thing that's out there, I love that. We hover around our kids way too much, and we supervise them way too much. We overparent our kids. So back the F off. I swear a lot, so
that's fine on this podcast.
Oh, Richard Pie, back the fuck off your kids. Get away from them. So I hold both, right? Play deeply so that you can build that trusting relationship and really know who your kids are, not just who you want them to be. And then get out of the way. and let them do it, because they're capable of so much more than and they behave differently. They behave differently when you're not around, and
Mm-hmm.
they're more likely to be responsible when you're not around, telling them what to do and what to
Yeah.
watch out for and how to be careful.
Yeah. So there's
Yeah.
that security that they, well, I'm knocking my table. There's the security that they build up in that. It's not like attachment theory, but it's some, the security that they build up in that
Yeah.
attachment with you, and they can trust, and then they can go off and have the
Right.
freedom. So
Right.
so I'm getting quite selfish now, and I'm thinking about I'm thinking about I have a 12 and a 14-year-old, so obviously like we still play is still really important, but it shifts, and we've
Yeah.
got board games, and they still play with their friends very much, like
I
make
love
believe
board
and
games.
things. Yeah. Do you? I'm
I
getting
love them.
better. I'm getting better.
There's some I don't play.
Yeah, but that kind of like, so the sense that I'm like, right, just one game and that's it.
Yeah.
That's
Well, I mean, have
true.
boundaries, definitely.
Yeah, but how do you see play changing as they get older? And then also, I don't know if you do any of this work, or if you have any thoughts about it, about play or being playful as in the teenagers, and what that might look like. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, my work, I focus mostly on the younger
Yeah,
age group because it sets it up. But
yeah.
I think that you got to really take the kids' lead, really get interested in what they're interested in, because the play
Mm-hmm.
is going to change, and it's really going to become more about what
Mm,
their interests are. So if they
mm.
stop being interested in board games, it's not going to work very well to say, come on, come on, come on, it's family game night, let's do this. They're going to like, no, mom, I don't do that anymore. And
Yeah.
please, let's build a blanket fort and crawl inside. Um, but so like, what do they like to do? And if they like gaming, if they're really into video games, maybe they'll teach you how to play one, and you can sit and play them, and you can
Yeah,
be like, lose dramatically. And because I'm horrible at video games, but
yeah.
I will learn, and I will sit there and go, I don't know what I'm doing. This is very stressful. When I learned how to play World of Warcraft, I wanted to be the night priestess and gather sparkly herbs, because that sounded fun. I can do that. I can be the priestess and gather sparkly herbs. That's kind of who I am. And so I'm doing this, and I'm like, there's a tiger. Oh my God, and I'm like dropping the thing in my head. And so he grabbed the thing and like killed the tiger for me and handed me back the controller. Spiders! Oh my God, 2 of the spiders. Okay, and then so it was very like, not my thing. Not my thing, but I'll do this with you if you take care of the tigers and the spiders. And
yeah. I used to think that I was good at gaming until I had kids. I used to be.
Oh my God, so stressful. And then like I'd have to take muscle relaxants after, because I can't do this.
Okay, so that is still, even as they get older, it's all about like making space and time to go into their world as much as you can kind of manage, because I'm thinking from the video game. Well, I know I'm sure you won't mind me saying this, but my eldest likes memes. I don't know, is it memes or memes? I always get that wrong. Yeah, I just embarrass him. Yeah. And then he likes jokes about them, but I don't understand them, because I don't. He has to explain them to me. And then he likes some YouTubers, and but that really crack him up, and so I spend some time watching that with him. So I suppose that's the similar thing. That's his sense of fun.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you don't have to do that all the time. Just enough to show him you're interested in what he's doing.
Yeah.
Like, oh, who's that? Cool. Let me see. And okay, I don't get that joke. And you can be silly and goofy and the dumb mom, and he can feel smarter, and he can feel more advanced than you, and because that's just gonna happen.
Yeah. Because they are.
Yeah. And but that just being able to be in a place where you're not criticizing his interests or redirecting him or wishing he would do something different, because he's not going to tell you what he's interested in if every time he comes to you with what he's interested in and you you smash him down, or I'm not saying you're doing this, but any
Yeah.
parent is like,
Yeah.
like he shows up with it. I wish you would get off those games. You're going to rot your brain with those games. I wish you would read a book. Why don't you read a book sometime? Like instead you come over and hang out on the couch with him and go, wow, those
Mm.
graphics are intense. So, okay, wait, what is he doing then? Oh, ah, what's he doing now? And then you're showing interest without criticizing.
I need you in my house. It's hilarious.
Everybody needs me in their house. They can pay me. Hooray.
And so that again, I'm thinking the stuff that you're talking about then, which is, all the stuff that we get incorrectly programmed, I think, with like how screens are ruining brains. And so when they're little, the anxiety might come out about, I've got to be vulnerable and intimate and go into this strange place that I can barely remember, and my brain is like future orientated now. It is not in the present moment, where my child is just like, everything that exists is just in the now, so there's that dynamic. But then as they get older, it's still the fears that come up, that like, is it okay to just allow this, to relax into it, to be present with them when they're supposed to be doing all this other stuff? And as a good parent, I'm supposed to be directing them here, there, and everywhere. And it's different, but it's all the same pressure
Oh my
and
gosh.
fears. And
The pressure on parents is so, so big. And you can look in any direction and find information that what you're doing is right or wrong. It
yeah.
doesn't matter what it is. The jury is out on screens. There are people saying screens are fine, just let them be and they'll regulate themselves.
Yeah.
Or that screens are the devil,
Yeah.
and we're going to find in 30 years that we're ruining our kids' brains. And I don't know, I've read it all and it all makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Either one.
Yeah.
So I try to not have a strong opinion either way. It's just like, okay, what feels right to your family? I try to bring
What's
it back.
working and what's not.
Yeah,
Like,
I try to bring it back to you. Like, you're the mom. Take a breath, center in yourself, come back to you and your family. What feels okay? Is your child doing all right?
Yeah.
Is he successful? Is he kind?
Yeah.
Is he strong in his relational skills with you and the family and his friends? Is he not going down a path of destructive behaviors? Is he doing okay? Then I think it's okay. You're doing all right.
Yeah.
Like, and try not to get too wrapped up in all the things to worry about, because there's too many things to worry about. And if you stick your head out here, that's where you're going to spend all your time. And then you're going to be the person that we need to have therapy for. Right? I mean, and so part of what I do, like, and that's what you might have noticed on my website, is like helping people connect back to themselves and connect to something bigger, because we have to have a center. We have to have some ground to come back to remember who we are as parents, who we are as individuals, to know where our source is, to be able to make these decisions consciously for these little people that we love so much. Because we can't always externalize and rely on all these other experts, not even me. Because it's just it's too many voices. There are too many voices telling you how to do this. And I have opinions that I think are useful, because I see a direction that parenting is going. Over-parenting, helicopter parenting, permissive parenting. There's just so many, and I see adults, like really young adults, that are not able to cope with stress, and we see the mental health statistics going up, and the suicide rates going up, and the free plays going down, and it scares me. And as a mental health clinician, when I was doing that, it was scaring me. And I saw this, and I was like, recess in this country, they're shrinking recess times in schools. Like, they're taking recess out of the day for kindergartners.
Wow.
Elementary school kids get 20 minutes for lunch and recess in the middle of the day.
Wow.
They get to eat, and so they're skipping they don't eat, and so they can go out to play for 20 minutes. And so they don't, they come home with their lunch, and then their parents get mad that they didn't eat their lunch. And they say they didn't have time.
Yeah.
you
Because
know.
they instinctively know the power of play as well, don't they?
Yeah,
They
yeah, they
instinctively
need to go
know
out and
that's
play.
all. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and so it's like, wow, and and these parents don't know what to do about it.
And when you were saying that about, I love that about parenting having those inner guiding principles, some way of feeling like they're supported by something that is larger than all these global opinions, whatever that might mean for somebody, to help you like navigate through it all. And then what you were saying about the mental health and everything that's going off now, one of the things that occurred to me when I was thinking about chatting with you, I'm not sure if you have an opinion on this, is just the idea of trauma and parents with past trauma, and how that can affect your ability to even sit still,
Yes.
especially if your nervous system's not regulated, you don't even know it yourself. But I think it might be useful for parents to hear that if they really have trouble sitting still, it might be because of their own trauma, and
Oh yeah.
and to regulate their nervous system, and now working on themselves will just like investing that time in themselves, giving them permission to do that, will just automatically change the field of the family. So
Yes.
I know we're kind of coming towards the end now, but I just wondered if you had any thoughts on that.
Definitely, definitely. A lot of different thoughts on that. Being a trauma therapist, I have a
Oh, of
huge,
course, of course.
yeah, huge information and background on that. But just to speak to the energetic parts of that, like
Mm-hmm.
our energetic field and our cellular memory holds what happened to us. So if we haven't resolved our trauma, it's held in our bodies and it gets passed down to our kids.
Yeah.
So it's held in our family body, right? So I'm not working in the mental health field anymore, so I don't actually treat the trauma. But
Mm-hmm.
if we get our own trauma resolved, it clears energetically for ourselves and for our kids and any generation up. So if your parents are still living that, if that trauma was passed down to you,
Yeah.
it's cleared generations up and down.
Yeah.
So, um, but it opens up and frees up your own ability to sit still.
Mm-hmm.
Meditating and being quiet is very difficult and can be contraindicated
Yeah.
with trauma. You
Yeah.
don't want to meditate if you have trauma.
Mm-hmm.
So there are trauma therapies like EMDR is really good. So there's ways to invest in doing that to clear some of those issues
Yeah.
so that you can play. And play can actually be a useful way of helping with that because it's movement and it's
Mm-hmm.
it's not sitting still.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It can just be really hard to be present.
Yeah.
So
I know for me, even just if I'm stressed, if I move towards like messing around with the kids, like just pulling faces and, like, I think you might say goofing, just like really
yeah,
messing around, the discharge of that stress, I can feel it leaving my body in a more joyful way than,
yeah.
I can do that through running as well, but yeah, it just discharges it. Mm.
Laughter is huge. Laughter is a
Yeah.
really good way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and just, I guess the final piece for me, I don't even know what this question is. It's just kind of forming, but it's like something about, as repairing our relationship with play as just grown-ups, not parents, but just as grown-ups, repairing our relationship with play so that we can bring that sense of lightness, of not taking things so seriously, but also a kind of intimacy with the world around us. I guess does it become joy? If we can repair that relationship of play internally. Have you got any? That's
Yeah.
not even a question.
Yeah. I'll see what I can do with it. I think so because I think it's connected to all the messages that we get about think positively and like try not to take life so seriously, like what you said, and keep focused on the present moment.
Yeah.
And we get so many messages. I mean, our culture is so focused on work, work, work. you
Yeah.
know, and
Yeah.
produce and success, and our value is placed on making money, and how much you have.
Yeah.
And if we can learn how to be in the present moment, and it's similar, like what I was saying about learning to know who your kids are rather than who you want them to be.
Mm.
Play is a way that we can learn who we are, not who
Mm.
we want to become or who we're striving to be. Because
Hmm.
playing is about now. You can't play for the future. Playing is now.
Yeah.
And play can be a walk in the woods. Play can be, kicking the leaves in the fall, or making a snow angel when you go outside on the first snow, or
I was going to
um,
say, how do you play? Well, if there's no kids around, like, how do you play just as you? What would you do?
well, I'm an actress, so I play in the theater.
Right.
I love performing. So
Mhm.
I will get a script and learn it and be in a show, and every day, I mean, the rehearsal process, interacting with the other actors, um, and the performing process every night, getting their face made up, putting the costume on, and going out and doing a show for the audience. That's play. So
Yeah.
that's one form. It's more
Yeah.
structured. It's
Yeah.
not the free form, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Um, so playing with the dogs, playing tug of war with the toys, it's playing with
Mhm.
the dogs.
Mhm.
Um, uh, Gosh, my husband and I taking walks together feels like play.
Yeah.
So we'll
Yeah.
talk. He's funny. He makes me laugh all the time. So he'll just say things
That's
that are
gorgeous.
jokes, and, you know, I'll have to hope that I don't have a mouthful of coffee that I have to out. Um, Let me think. Gosh, I'm trying to think of the last time I played with my daughter. She's 23 and she lives in Canada now. So I haven't seen her since September. So that's sad.
Mm. And
um,
I know you're doing theatre at the moment, so when I ask you
yeah.
about play, my guess is that that is all you can think. That's how I play right
Hey,
now.
yeah.
I
Well, they
am
call it
in
a
the
play,
middle
so
of it.
it's play.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
You light up. It's gorgeous.
yeah, but so I guess for me, the definition of play is like, what do you do for fun? What do you
Yeah,
do for right now? What do you do that lightens your day?
yeah.
That brings lightness to your day for right now. That you don't do for any other reason except for you. Oh, I
Mm.
storytell. I love telling stories. Um,
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, and I know this because I have another job it's a small part-time job that I am the director of religious education for my Unitarian Universalist Fellowship, and one of my parts of that job is to tell the story in the service
Mm-hmm.
each week. And so I'll pick a book and I'll learn it, and then put the book away and go up in front and tell the story,
Mm.
and it's just so much fun for me. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I didn't even know that I love doing this, and now I know I love doing this.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay. That makes sense. Running is play for me as long as I'm not looking at my time or my distance or
yes.
criticizing myself. But if I can just run in the moment and be grateful for what I'm feeling, what I'm seeing, yeah, that is a sense of
I
play for
I
me.
used to run. I don't anymore for health reasons. I had foot issues. But when I did, I stopped taking my phone with me because it stopped
Yeah.
being fun.
Yeah.
Because I'm
Yeah.
like, stop with the phone. I'm just going to pay attention to the birds and the scenery. And
Exactly. I was really lucky. I had a good friend who's also a body wizard coach. You might listen to this. So this is like a massive thanks for Jane. But when she introduced me to running, and she was just like, just run for you, nobody else. Find the joy, listen to your body. And that was my introduction to it. I'm so grateful for that. But yeah.
yeah,
So everybody needs a Dylan in the house is what we're going to say every time. It's just like you infuse it. I guess it's like just being in your presence. I'm imagining, people, yeah, you just infuse play, or you just embodiment of it. That's the word I was looking for. So
nice.
if people were wanting to work with you, I know you've got something specific on at the moment on offer that you
Yeah.
want. Can you just tell us a bit more about that and where we can find you?
Yes, I have a new an offer going on right now
Yeah.
until Valentine's Day. So I've severely discounted my price for 4 sessions until
Okay.
Valentine's Day. The program is called Wholehearted Play, where I'm going to spend 4 sessions teaching you the ins and outs of play, the different kinds of play, what's stopping you, like helping you dive into yourself about what's stopping you from playing with your kids the way you want to, why
Yeah.
it's hard, and
Mm.
how to make it easier,
Mm.
why it's important. And then if there's sticky parts, like kind of what I talked about earlier, like if your child, it becomes very bossy and controlling, kind of talking a little bit about what that might mean and how to handle times like that in the play.
Yeah.
So 4 sessions to really go into depth about how to play with your child in the way you want to. There's a deadline of January 30th. If you sign up by January 30th, you get 5 sessions.
Wow. Wow.
So
Okay.
a whole session for free, that's $150 value. And then the discounted 4 sessions goes until February 14th.
Okay.
So, and you can find that on my website. It's dylanandspradlin.com.
I'll put a link in the show notes as well.
Yeah, because that's like my whole name, and it's spell. And then on that website, it's a till Valentine's Day wholehearted play. There's a link in the menu.
Okay. And so I was thinking as well, for people, that line that you said right at the beginning, that might be useful to remind people again of like how to recognize if it's play that your family needs. You said something about, somebody said everything was there for it to be a happy family.
Yeah, everything was in place for it to be a happy family, but nothing was working. There was just always this underlying tension, she said to me. And I was like, wow, I bet a lot of people feel that way. Bickering, doors slamming, timeouts happening. Just everybody kind of on edge. And this mom in particular talked to me, and she's like, I can't figure out why it's not working.
Okay. So if people recognize themselves with that, they can work with you over Skype or in person, I think, as well, can't they?
I use Zoom, but
yeah. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Well, I really enjoyed that. Thank you.
Yeah, I enjoyed this too. Thank you so much for having me on.
You're welcome.
It's a great start for my day, because over here it's only like 9:30 right now.
Oh yeah, it is. I'm just about to cook tea. Yeah, that's really strange.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So thank you very much. And I'll put all the information so that people can contact you in the show notes. So
wonderful.
Yeah.
Thanks
all right.
so much.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
And enjoy your evening.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.